This content is brought to you by iTrust Capital, which is a great platform that allows you to easily invest in crypto without worrying about taxes or fees. iTrust Capital allows you to invest in crypto through an individual retirement account or IRA. IRAs are tax sheltered accounts, which means all of your crypto is tax free and can even grow tax free over time. The process of signing up with iTrust Capital is very easy. They have a mobile app. They have 25 plus cryptocurrencies. They have full support, a dedicated team ready to help you. And it is free. And once again, 100% free to sign up with iTrust Capital. There are no hidden fees and there's no monthly subscription or membership. They also have great security. They utilize Coinbase custody for all their custodial services. So you don't have to worry. It is institutional grade crypto custody that they are using. This is a great platform. Once again, it is free to sign up. So visit the link in the description and go check it out. If you sign up with my link, you get a $100 funding bonus. So once again, check the link in the description. Welcome back to the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is Paul Riegle, who's the Chief Product Officer at Algorand. Paul, it's great to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me. Appreciate it.
Paul, let's start with your background. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And what did you do before joining Algorand?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in the Midwest outside of Chicago. That's where I spent most of my time. I went to school down mostly on the East Coast, and then I've been somewhere on the East Coast ever since. I've been here in Boston now for just about 20 years. And from a career perspective, I've been in product. So I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Algorand. I've been in product most of my career. So I was at Algorand for the last 4 years or so. Prior to that, at a company called Carbon Black, which was originally Bit9, which has now been bought by VMware, doing product in endpoint cybersecurity. Before that, I was at IBM for a couple of years doing product for data protection service, and then grad school and a whole bunch of stuff before that.
Now, what was your first encounter with crypto? Did a friend tell you about it? Did you read about it on the forum? And what do you hold in your crypto portfolio?
I'll never tell. So my first interaction with crypto was mostly, there was a colleague of mine at a former company started getting into it. And so it started, poking me. And honestly, it wasn't that early. This was maybe 2018. And it just sort of spiraled from there, I guess. And then from, in terms of my crypto portfolio, we build infrastructure here. We build the protocol, the sort of foundational layer. And so that's sort of my perspective on things. I like the infrastructure layer. And so my portfolio is primarily made up of people trying to create infrastructure rather than sort of layer 2 dApps or DeFi or any of that stuff. It just sort of fits better with my personality.
For sure. So let's talk about Algorand. There was some big news earlier this month. First was the Algorand Network upgrade, which expands smart contract functionality. Can you tell us about that and the details around it?
Yeah, for sure. So we put out a release about 3 weeks ago or so, a month ago, had a pretty significant upgrade for our smart contracts, introducing smart contract to contract calls, which is a big step up for composability in our ecosystem and for our builders. We also had a number of other sort of upgrade pieces to that release, specifically around interoperability in our state proofs. We released a post-quantum secure signature scheme that'll be used for what we call state proofs, which allows our blockchain to attest to its own state in a cryptographic proof that can be dropped into other chains, so you can have trustless bridges. So that was a pretty big release. Other things going on in our ecosystem right now, I don't know if you guys follow the Algorand Foundation, but they've been revamping their grants programs and really getting aggressive in terms of getting into industry specific to DeFi, into the creator market, et cetera. And so between the smart contracts that are really, as powerful as any platform out there, but faster and cheaper, plus all the, the grant money in the Algorand Foundation really looking to kickstart it there. It's a great time to be a builder in the Algorand ecosystem right now.
Now, a question I want to ask, because I'm sure many folks will have this question as well. What sets Algorand apart from the likes of a Solana and AVAX and Avalanche, or Avalanche, I should say, and Ethereum and so forth. I know you touched on some of the items, and I would love for you to make that distinction.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Trying to do comparisons is so nuanced from chain to chain because the technology is so detailed and so nuanced, and the trade-off decisions that have been made. It's hard to say, well, here's a blanket statement as to how we're different. We are very fast, so we're at over 1,000 transactions a second now. We're in the middle of a project, in fact, the tail end of a project to go up to 10,000 transactions a second. Our finality is much better than what you see often out there in the market. We've got 4.5 second block latency. If a transaction appears in the block, it's final, which is like a bunch of sort of technical stuff. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about is user experience. What does it feel like when you submit a transaction? How confident are you when you see that transaction in your wallet that it's actually occurred and that it can't be reverted? And those kinds of things really sort of add up. We're also so we talked about very fast, we're very cheap. Our transactions are a thousandth of an algo, whether it's a payment transaction or an asset transaction or a smart contract transaction, they're all the same cost, which sets us apart from a number of different chains. We are carbon negative. We're the first blockchain to do that through carbon credits that are traded on chain. And frankly, our background is a little bit different in terms of our founder Sylvia Macaulay is a Turing Award winner. We've got sort of an academic background, which shows up in the fact that we've got 100% uptime, because the technology, in our opinion, in my opinion, blockchains aren't just an implementation problem. They're a theoretical, they're an algorithmic, and they're an implementation problem. And if you don't have sort of all your bases covered in those areas, you tend to have more problems in terms of uptimes and other things. And so, yeah, so if you combine fast, cheap, stable, green, I think we're doing all the right things to sort of create a lane for ourselves in the market here.
For sure. I've interviewed Sean Ford, your colleague, COO, and
Sean's great.
Yeah, and I remember he talked about the upgrade that was coming to increase the transactions per second. You mentioned 10,000. Do you guys have like a tentative date, maybe sometime this quarter or next quarter?
Yeah, we're targeting Q2 for that. And it's actually two things. So it'll bump up the TPS to 10,000 transactions a second. It also reduced the block latency. So we're at about 4.5 seconds now. We expect it to be about 2.5 seconds after that release. So it's been a lot of work. Frankly, it's a lot of sort of systems engineering, which isn't necessarily like theoretically risky, but is just hard, and you got to grind through it and make sure you're testing and all those kinds of things. So it's been a lot of work. We're on the tail end of it, and we're pretty excited about it.
That's awesome. So recently in the news, there's been a lot of adoption, and I want to talk about some of these. A blast from the past and Limewire. I remember using Limewire back in the day. Can you tell us how are you going to be using Algorand?
Yeah, so I mean, the Limewire brand is a great brand, has a lot of nostalgia, but also an ethos that fits really well with blockchain and with the sort of self-sovereignty, ethos that comes along with it, and self-ownership. So Limewire has decided to relaunch as a NFT marketplace, specifically around music, although they expect to branch out into other artists and other creators over time. Think of it similar to sort of an OpenSea competitor. And under the hood, they've done their technical diligence. And honestly, like a lot of companies that are out there who actually do the technical diligence on the underlying chain, they've decided that Algorand is the best fit from a speed, from a cost, from an uptime, and from a sort of long-term partner perspective. And so Algorand will be the underlying blockchain that powers minting and the creation of those NFTs inside of their marketplace. We're pretty excited about it. I'm excited about it because I love the brand. And I think it's really great. I've seen we've seen some sort of previews. There we go. That's the word, previews of it. And it's pretty slick. I think they're really putting together a really nice product, and the relationships they have with the creators and the artists, I think it's going to be, a powerful player in the market.
For sure. Yeah, I'm excited to see that. And on the note of NFTs related to songs, we saw that one of the founding members of Run-DMC, Darryl McDaniels, and the song that owns itself are also adopting Algorand. I believe this was announced at just last week.
Yeah, super cool. I don't know how much research you've done into the STOIs, or the song that owns itself, but it's an example of, again, trying to reduce the space between artists and creators and their fans, trying to reduce the space using blockchain. And so, this song that has been released has something like 400 people that have ownership rights in the song, and that's facilitated through that asset on the blockchain. And it's not just ownership rights in the song; it's future revenue, it's future streaming rights. It's all those things sort of built into the song itself, the tokenized song itself. And it's a really interesting project. The song that owns itself, they've done a number of different songs. This is just the latest one. And, I think blockchain is really the underpinning that makes it possible to do these kinds of things. And again, like Limewire and like these other companies, they used to be on Ethereum, and they've done their research. They've looked at they've done their technical diligence. They've seen the speed, cost, uptime, et cetera. Decided Algorand is the best long-term partner for that project.
Now, I love the adoption that Algorand is getting. I'm full disclosure, I am an Algo token holder. I'm
nice.
bullish on Algo.
Yeah, we need to get you a pillow.
Yeah, I definitely need one. If you guys could hook me up.
Yeah.
And one of the things Sean and I had talked about in the previous interviews was the Marshall Islands building a CBDC on Algorand, and he mentioned you guys were in talks with other central banks around the world, and obviously he couldn't disclose any information there. So you have NFTs and tokenization and music, and you also have CBDCs. Are there other use cases that you guys are targeting, maybe towards enterprises and things like that you can give us a hint about?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, our targets are not dissimilar from things that are successful in blockchain, right? So the DeFi space is definitely a target. Creators and in the creator space, definitely a target. NFTs, we've got a pretty good amount of gravity around the music space with Limewire and Dequency and a number of other projects out there that are in the music space. Certainly, I think the government projects like CBDCs, their research, are a proof point about how important this technology is. And frankly, they're not there yet. They're not sure what they want to do. They're not sure how they want to use it. And there are pros and cons to those kinds of usages and those kinds of projects. But certainly it's a testament to the power of the underlying technology and how it can really transform not just peer-to-peer and for me and you and the sort of underdog, if you will, but also at the very highest levels, the understanding that the power and the flexibility that it brings to them.
For sure. There's one item that just came to mind, and I don't know if you can answer it at the top of your head, but I know there was the governance deadline and all of that stuff that took place, I believe, a few months ago. Yeah. My timeline may be off. How did that go? And were there any interesting takeaways and where things are at now?
Yeah, it went really well. So the Algorand Foundation runs the governance program. Anybody who's an Algo holder can be a governor in the protocol. If you what we call soft lock algos, you earn a rate of return on those algos. You earn a reward for voting. If you don't vote, you won't get those algos. And they put things up to the community around spending, around grants, around improving the governance program, for example. And then everyone gets a chance to vote. We had something like 60,000 governors register, and over 3 billion, or just about 3 billion algos were committed to governance in this last program, in this last quarter. And it's a quarterly deal. So every quarter you can choose to re-up or pull out or whatever you'd like to do. And it's been a huge success. We don't have real numbers, but we think it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, sort of on-chain voting governance mechanisms that we've seen in blockchain.
Wow. That's pretty exciting. And I participated. So
Nice.
yeah.
Were you an A or a B? Which one did you vote for?
Boy, I'm trying to remember, maybe an A, if I'm not mistaken.
All right. All right.
Yeah. I have so many things going on. So
Yeah, no worries.
in my head. There was also news of a congressional candidate, Shrina Kurani, if I'm saying her name correctly, launching an NFT, energy efficient NFTs on the Algorand blockchain. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I think there's a couple things. One, politicians are understanding how important of an issue crypto is to Americans. And obviously that is also true elsewhere in the world, but since we're talking about an American politician, I'll focus on America. The speed and the depth of the advance of crypto in the U.S. has been pretty stunning. And as the government tries to grapple with it, so do politicians. Politicians look for issues that can get them seen, that can have their constituents feel like, okay, this person is representing me. And crypto is becoming one of those issues. And it's particularly interesting because it's becoming one of those issues, but it cuts across all previous silos. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter if you're East Coast, West Coast. It doesn't matter if you're a conservative or liberal. Like, it doesn't sort of matter. You get people who believe, and I mean believe, in the philosophy and the ethos of crypto everywhere. And so what we're seeing are politicians, and this is a good example of it, who also sees that, understands this is a way to connect, this is a way to improve their standing with their constituents. So that's sort of like one side of it, is just, it's an example of how powerful crypto is becoming in just the fabric of society. In terms of launching on Algorand, again, it's a similar story. She had launched previous NFTs on Ethereum, continued to do research, found that Algorand was a much greener blockchain, and really represented what she was looking to do. The 230 NFTs represent 230 billion tons of carbon remaining in the world's carbon budget. And so she's trying to really sort of evoke those sort of thoughts and tie it to the fact that being green is equally important, not just in blockchain, but generally in the world. And I think it's a cool project and a good way to engage with people for whom crypto is important. Yeah, I'm excited to see where that project goes.
Yeah, that's definitely exciting. And it's great to see, to your point, just members of the government and politicians and so forth are getting on board, and it's bipartisan from both sides of the aisle. So on that note, we just had President Biden issue a crypto executive order. I would love to get your thoughts on that. Did you see that as a positive move and a move in the right direction?
Yeah, again, as a US-centric topic, yeah, it's got to be positive, right? The quote-unquote problem with crypto in the US is not regulation or bad regulation. It's a complete lack of regulation or of even clarity and guidance on how companies should behave. So anything that moves that discussion forward and gets crisper and clearer, in my opinion, is a positive. I like to think the best of people, and that means that the more they get educated, the more nuances they'll see, the more sides of the argument they can see, and then we can come to a consensus as to the right way to handle this. But you can't come to consensus on the right way to handle it if you either ignore it or if you don't learn about it. And so, I look at it as a positive, like, all right, great. Let's have people get serious about learning about it. And then we can have actual nuanced discussions rather than some of the hyperbolic stuff that's out there now from some politicians who either don't know about it or are sort of purposely obfuscating their knowledge.
For sure. So a real quick question here on the roadmap for a product and expansion of Algorand this year. What can you give us a hint on? I know some things may be under wraps, but what's kind of some of the top priority items for you guys?
Yeah, for sure. So we've effectively got three big strategic pillars that we go after from a product perspective. The first one is what I call sort of core protocol properties. If you think about a blockchain protocol similar to like HTTP, where everybody's using HTTP all the time, but nobody talks about it, right? You're not like, let's do a video call later on HTTP. Like it doesn't make sense. You'd say, let's do it on Zoom because that's the actual like app that we're going to use, and it might connect into this HTTP thing, but like we don't have to talk about it. If you think about it from that perspective, blockchain is a very similar type of protocol in that instead of moving information around, it moves value around. And there are lots of applications and value-add applications out there that seek to move value around. And these applications will connect into back-end protocols, blockchain protocols. And in order to be that protocol, you have to provide a user experience that makes sense for the users of that app. And so our core protocol properties are things like we got to have higher TPS, which we talked about. We got to have lower latency. We've got to have, we got to continue to have a great trust model where we haven't made trade-offs to centralize. We want to continue to be decentralized like we are. We've got to continue to be cheap. It's all those things about the back-end protocol, so that when blockchain is integrated into everything in some way, we can be one of those back-end protocols or the back-end protocol that facilitates that value. So that's core protocol properties. The second one is smart contract platform. This is pretty simple. We would prefer that you and everyone else build your smart contract applications on Algorand versus other chains. Or if you're going to do multiple chains, we want to be one of those chains. And so that means we have to have just a fantastic smart contract platform. That means it's got to be highly composable. That means it's got to be easy to develop and with higher level languages. That means it's got to have the compute, the storage, the data access models that you need to build the most complex applications out there, to build the next sort of disruptive innovation in dApps. So we focus on that smart contract platform. And then the third pillar is around, is around interoperability. We're a big believer in sort of multi-chain world. And there are lots of solutions out there for interoperability, moving assets between chains, moving messages between chains, but they all involve some level of trust that does not, or in addition to the trust of the blockchain. So you got blockchain A, you got blockchain B, you got to trust them both if you're going to use them. But in the bridging world and the interoperability world, there's a third party introduced that you also have to trust. And that third party may be centralized, it may be decentralized, it may be economically incentivized. And people are trying to minimize that trust, but there's always some level of trust there. And so our belief is that as a layer one protocol provider, we need to help people minimize their trust. And so I talked briefly about state proofs earlier. State proofs are a piece of technology that removes trust from that process. As long as you trust our blockchain, you trust their blockchain, this state proof is something that can completely remove the trust of any third party in the middle. That doesn't take third parties out of the equation. They can still build great user experiences. They can still compete on fees and on brand, et cetera. But it's a way to make their solution, if you choose not to do a direct bridge, it's a way to make their solution trustless from an Algorand perspective. And so interoperability is a big piece for us. So those are the three pieces: core protocol properties, the smart contract platform, and the interoperability. And we're making pretty big strides against all three of those last quarter and Q1 of 2022, and then also in Q2. So we talked about a big release for smart contracts, the post-quantum signature keys for state proofs. We're doing additional work on the TPS, on the block latency. Our smart contracts are introducing a feature here in the next quarter or so to have unlimited storage, which is something you see on slower blockchains like Ethereum, but not necessarily something you see on very fast blockchains, because data is hard and having a lot of data makes it harder to go fast. So we're doing some work there, and then the actual state proofs will come out here in Q2 as well, and we're pretty excited about that.
That's exciting. Looking forward to those respective updates. Final question here, the wrap-up question. It's going to be rapid fire, such as, what's your favorite food?
Pizza.
Favorite musician or band?
I've been on a big Martin Sexton kick. I don't know if you know him, singer-songwriter out upstate New York.
I got to check him out.
Cool.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Oh, that's a tough one. I'm going to go with White Men Can't Jump. Late 90s street basketball movie.
Yeah, it's a great one.
I don't know if I should have picked like something more cerebral, but that's what came to mind.
Favorite book?
Favorite book? I really like the book Shantaram. It's a book about I think a UK expat in, or might have been an Australian expat in India. It's an excellent book.
And when you're not working at Algorand, what are you doing for fun as a pastime?
I am mostly playing with my kids. I have 2 kids, and we like to hang out. They're still at an age where they like to hang out with me, so I'm taking advantage of it.
For sure. Paul, a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You got it. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.